So you've interviewed your family member for the family history, right? So your job's done. Not quite. Well, it can be, but if you want to do it right, there's still a couple things you might want to do. We'll talk about that in 5 seconds. Hi, I'm Greg Kleist. I'm the host for the Road to Your Family History YouTube channel. Boy, thanks so much for joining me. Hey, before we get down to business, down below, click the subscribe button. That will tell me and YouTube both that you want to see more of these videos. And next to that subscribe button, there's a little bell icon. If you click on that, you'll get an email every time I post a new video so that you know right away when I posted a new video and you can go and take a look at it. Hey, thanks so much. I really appreciate it. Okay, you finished the interview with your family member, right? Well, I'll bet it went great, especially if you've looked at all those videos that I have posted on how to get ready for the interview and how to actually conduct the interview. But now that it's done, there's still a few things that you really should do. It's not something you have to do, but man, it's gonna pay off dividends in the long term. The first thing you need to do is thank them. You should have thanked them already when you sat down to do the interview and after you were done with the interview. But when you get home, you need to thank them some more. Send them at least a snail mail. I mean, people don't do that often nowadays. I think they'll appreciate, especially if they're older people, they'll appreciate a little handwritten note from you thanking them for the time they took to share the family history with them. But I wouldn't just do that. I would also send them a thank you by email, if they have it, and by telephone if possible. Boy, if you do those 3 thank you things, boy, that's really going to impress them, and it's going to make it even more likely you can get a follow-up interview to get some more great family history information. The second thing you need to do is you really want to preserve that interview, don't you? You want to preserve it for future generations. So if you've preserved it digitally, like if you did it with an audio recorder or you did a video of it, you want to save that to at least 3 different locations. At least 3. Now that can be, you could put it on a DVD or CD and send that to one of your children or a couple of your children, or maybe a safe deposit box, or put it on a jump drive too. You could do either one of those. But what you also want to do is you want to give a copy of that interview to the subject. That is, if they want it. They may not even want it, especially if you've recorded audio of some kind, because believe me, a lot of people don't like the sound of their own voice. It's kind of weird because you hear it all the time, but you hear it differently when you hear it externally and not yourself talking with your mouth and you know what I mean. But ask the interview subject if they think that there's someone else they would like to have a copy of this interview. It could be one of their children or a husband, a brother, a sister. It could be any number of people. But make sure they have a say in who gets a copy of that interview. Now, you will probably want to share that interview with other people in the family too. But the safest way to go about this is to really ask permission from the interview subject. Say, hey, do you mind if I give it to my brother Jimmy? They probably won't mind, but there may be instances where for some reason they won't want particular people to get a copy of that interview. And you have to respect that, please, at least while they're among the living, because that's, once again, that's going to make it a lot easier for you to get a follow-up interview if you need to get one. Another way to preserve this interview is to actually transcribe it. I mean, if you've done an audio recording or a video recording, that's fantastic, because future generations are, hopefully, if you've preserved it and sent it to a couple different places to ensure it survives, it will ensure that future generations will be able to hear the voice of their ancestors and maybe even see them if you did a video too. But listen, the interview is going to pay you dividends too, because as you're transcribing it, you're going to be able to identify gaps. You're going to say, well, gee, I asked her about this, but man, what about this? It only would have made sense if I would have followed up with a question about this, but you didn't. So that'll give you some ideas if you should do a follow-up interview, or if you want to send her a couple questions afterwards. Plus, another thing that might sound strange, but if you transcribe the interview, it will force you to find the accurate spellings of names, because oftentimes you'll get names from the interview subject lots of times. But the problem is you might not know how to spell them, and you think you might know how to spell them. Now, if you think about it, you can ask them during the interview, well, how do you spell Uncle Bob's name? Not B-O-B, that's pretty obvious. But how do you spell his last name? Or how do you spell your great-grandmother's name or your Aunt Zelda's name? Things like that. If you could think about that during the interview, that's great, but lots of times you're so wound up in the actual interview itself and the information they're giving you, you don't remember little things like that, like how do you spell the name. So if you're doing a transcript, then that's going to force you to follow up asking how those names are spelled. And that's going to make your family history, once again, much more accurate because you're going to get the right information. That's all I have right now. This is the last in a series of the videos I'm doing about interviewing your relatives for family history. And I'm sure there's things I did not cover. If you wondered about it, hey, go below in the comments and ask me a question. I'll answer it for you if I can. If I can't, I'll try to find the answer for you. If I can't find the answer for you, well then I'll at least make suggestions to you on where you could find that answers. So, hey, I enjoyed doing this series, and I hope to see you in future videos too. So take care. Bye.